Good morning. This is Ryan Burris. I'm the Chief Communications Officer for the Capistrano Unified School District, and I just welcome you this morning as we talk about the multi-tiered systems of support, which is an incredible social-emotional support system that we've put together for students in the Capistrano Unified School District. It is a huge priority for the school district, and even to the point of in 2015, the board members voted to approve the investment of 30 new counselors. We were one of the first school districts in the state to have counselors at every elementary school. Incredible investment. We hired 30 counselors, so we have them in every school from TK and kindergarten all the way up to grade 12. And just that alone costs about $4 million a year for the school district. And it is one of the huge priorities the district has had and our board has had over the last 5 years as we look to ways to help students even more in social emotional support. We know that intervening early for kids helps them through their elementary, their middle, and their high school, and gives them the support necessary to be happy and healthy and ready for school. So we have this morning Rebecca Pianta. She's our coordinator of counseling and student support, and Peggy Bairst, our executive director of elementary education. And I'm going to turn this over to them, and they will tell you all about our multi-tiered systems of support. Towards the end, we will open it up for Q&A. So please put your questions into the Q&A box down at the bottom of the Zoom conference call dashboard, or you can also put them in the chat. And now I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca.
Okay, so thank you so much for that warm welcome, Ryan. Truly appreciate the time that you're taking to have us share with you some of the great work that we're doing within the district. The intent behind this presentation is really looking at the multi-tiered system of supports for social emotional, behavioral, as well as academics, to really ensure that all students are successful. Our district, our mission as a district is really to be able to prepare students to meet the challenges of a rapidly changing world. We have that vision of an unwavering commitment to student success. So really it's about doing whatever it takes to ensure all of our students are successful. So hopefully by the end of this webinar today, the participants who've been part of this process with us will have the opportunity to reflect on some of these following objectives. So let me just pull it up. The objectives on my end. 1 second. My computer is giving me technical difficulties at this moment, so give me 1 moment. Yeah. Okay, it's up and running again, folks. Here we go. So really hopefully by the end of this presentation today, you'll have a better understanding of the multi-tiered system of supports and how we as a staff utilize professional learning communities to help ensure that we're properly identifying students that need appropriate supports. And then we'll go through and share with you how we provide academic supports for students, as well as social emotional and behavioral supports. So the way we do that is through the multi-tiered system of supports framework. And so this is a pyramid that you'll see posted all across our district website, and a lot of our schools also have this on their websites as well too, because it really just frames how we structure the supports within our district. As you'll see at the bottom of this, we start with our professional learning communities because they are truly the core and foundation of how we go by identifying students that need additional support. And then we start with the tier 1 for all students under social emotional, we look more at that as the core competencies, so skill sets that we want to ensure that all of our students acquire to ensure that they're living healthy and productive lives. And then under our tier 1 academic framework, we're really looking at the state standards through Great First Instruction. Again, that supports all students in the academic realm. And when we're looking at behavior, we're looking at that through a positive school climate, creating structures and systems in place to ensure our school climate is truly positive. And then for students who need additional support, it's really looking at targeted supplemental interventions for them and figuring out what are some evidence-based interventions that we can plug them in. And then for students who need more intensified support, that individualized support, that's when we move them over to the tier 3 and again, provide more of that individualized support. So really, when you're looking at the MTSS framework, it addresses the needs of all students. It truly does align with the entire system, initiatives and supports, and it implements continuous improvement processes all through the levels. So we're continuously progress monitoring our students truly being successful, and you'll learn more as we go along through this presentation today. So just as a recap, the whole state of California really is moving towards an MTSS model. So again, it's really looking at that universal supports for all students. Again, making sure you're utilizing evidence-based practices, and then supplemental support for some students, and then intensified supports for those individualized students that do need a little bit more to be successful.
Thank you. All right, welcome everybody. Again, I'm Peggy Berst. I'm Executive Director of Elementary, and I just wanted to talk to you for a little bit about professional learning communities and our academic supports. So our professional learning communities, like Rebecca said, are the foundation of our MTSS. So I wanted to share this theory of action that the district holds for all students. And it starts with, if we as a district clearly identify MTSS and provide the tools and resources needed, then principals, teachers, and staff working together in professional learning communities will use data and assessments to drive changes in outcomes for students so that all students may be college and career ready. So our ultimate goal is for every student to have many options beyond our K-12 education, our pre-K-12. So you'll notice that the MTSS pyramid is at the bottom, and the interaction of academics, behavior, and social emotional support, our MTSS. So talking about professional learning communities, our professional learning communities are really what our cultures are at our schools. They're staff, teachers, and admin working together. So within the PLC, teachers work systematically to address all students' learning needs through a Plan, Do, Study, Act model that we'll talk more about. And all of them are supported by administration, schools and teams, grade level teams and department teams set very clear and common goals around student learning. They have regular agreed upon meeting times. We have early outs at the elementary and late starts at middle school and high school. Teachers use data to inform their instruction. So it really is evidence-based. We look at data and we specifically prescribe what students need. Teachers work collaboratively in teams, and they focus on results. They focus on the results of student learning, and they create a culture of collaboration. So our sites have a shared responsibility for all students learning at high levels. The three big ideas of a PLC are kind of the collective commitments that are present at each school site. Again, teachers, staff, and administrators all working together. So those three collective commitments is that we have a very specific focus on learning. We accept high levels of learning, and we expect high levels of learning for all students, and that's our fundamental purpose. We do everything we do is to make sure that students are learning. That collaborative culture is expected, and by having that collaborative culture and working together, we can achieve our fundamental purpose of high levels of learning for all students. And we cultivate a collaborative culture through the development of high-performing teams. So not only do we want our students performing high, we want our teams of teachers to perform high together and draw upon each other's strengths. And then finally, a focus on results. So we assess our effectiveness of achieving high levels of learning for all on the basis of results rather just on intentions. So we could do our best teaching, but if the students aren't learning, we need to take a look at the results, maybe make a better plan and deliver more effective instruction. Make sure students are learning. So everything we do is evidence-based to promote continuous improvement. So in a PLC, collaborative teams focus on four critical questions. And in all of our professional learning with teachers, you'll hear us talking about these 4 questions constantly. And they are, what do we want students to know and be able to do? We need to get very, very clear on what the standards say and what students need to know. How are we going to know that they've learned it? So how are we going to assess that with evidence? How do we respond when they don't learn it? So do we do a tier 2 reteach or some type of intervention? And how do we respond when they've already learned it? So we also want to extend the curriculum for those students that are already performing at high levels. So every time a team, either a grade level or a department group gets together, they focus on one or more of these questions. Okay, let's talk a little bit about academics. So in 2010, our state of California adopted the Common Core State Standards for English Language Arts and Literacy in history, social studies, science, and technical subjects. So not only did we have new English language arts standards, but literacy around every subject area was adopted by our state. Also in 2012, the English language development standards for English language learners were adopted, and then together they came together, and in 2014 a framework was written for us, and the framework is the guidelines. So the standards are the what we need to teach and what students need to learn, and the framework explains how we do that. Here's a little graphic that kind of captures the entire framework. The framework is quite thick, so this graphic is very helpful in understanding the contents. So the circle around the outside, that orange circle, is the ultimate goal of the Common Core State Standards. So we want our students to be ready for college, career, and civic life, broadly literate with 21st century learning and skills, and capacities for literacy broadly. Or I'm sorry, literate individuals. The way those white spaces are the way that teachers they deliver instruction. So that's the way that they are teaching. We want them to be motivating, engaging, integrated, intellectually challenging, and respectful to students. In the center are the ELA and ELD standards, and that the literacy across disciplines is necessary for that. And then the 5 blue circles are how students are demonstrating those skills, how they are making meaning of text, they're expressing themselves effectively, they have a strong foundational skills, content knowledge, and strong language development. So that's kind of the framework in a nutshell. Here's just a quote around implementing the Common Core State Standards through multi-tiered systems of support. Implementing the Common Core State Standards within the framework of the MTSS will help ensure that all students have an evidence-based system of instruction to assist them in achieving success. So nothing is left up to chance. We are using data, we are using evidence, and we're building a system that ensures results for all students. Now these are slides, these next few slides are embedded inside the pyramid, which, as Rebecca said, can be found on our website and on a multitude of pages and on school site pages as well. But there's a parent's guide that you can click around and see some of this information. This first slide is preschool and TK, transitional kindergarten. This is tier 1 for all students, and you can click on those links and find out more about the preschool standards, learning foundations, the frameworks, the big day curriculum that is used in those classrooms. The framework documents are there, an overview, and also TK documents, and Great First Instruction, which we call GFI. On the next slide, this focuses tier 1 for all students for elementary. So this is a parent's guide to the state standards. We have English language arts, English language development, math, science, and social science. And remember, those are the what of instruction, and then the how are the frameworks. So we've included links to all the frameworks, which again tells teachers, staff, and administrators how to deliver the instruction for student success. And then at the bottom there, we go over what the Great First Instruction GFI strategies are. So pre-K through 12, we focus on lesson preparation strategies, interaction, review, and assessment. This is also an elementary slide, and this talks about Tier 2 interventions. Tier 2, remember, are for some students. So all students get Tier 1. Some students receive Tier 2 interventions if they didn't learn it the first time. So this just goes over what our curriculum is for English Language Arts. We use Wonders curriculum in grades K through 3, Benchmark in grades 4 and 5. And for math interventions, we have iReady Math Diagnostic and Interventions. And there's additional resources within our math curriculum. And teachers can also access the elementary curriculum website for strategies and curriculum. And then this slide is more secondary. So this is talking about middle school and high school. And again, listing all the state standards. You can click on any of those links to see the what. And then the frameworks are the how it is delivered. And then other helpful resources for secondary are graduation information, course placement criteria, and course catalog and futurology. Okay, I will hand it back to Rebecca for social emotional.
Okay, so all right, so social emotional, as Ryan said earlier, truly is a district priority. Within the last 4 years, we have hired additional 30 counselors. As a result of that, starting at the elementary school, we're able to ensure we're delivering social emotional lessons within the classroom, as well as a wide array of other lessons as well too. So for our school counseling program, it really is all about prevention. And so in order to prevent misbehavior from happening or issues from arising down the line, it's really important to have a solid foundation and a preventative practices in place. So in order to make that happen, our school counselors pushing into the classroom. For our elementary as well as our middle school, the curriculum that we have adopted is the second step curriculum. And that really just teaches students about social emotional learning strategies and competencies. So really looking at skills for learning, how to be empathetic, being able to recognize their feelings in not only themselves, but also others as well too. And once they're able to identify their feelings, how to be able to manage it. So looking at emotion management. And then we really want to start teaching our students about how to be resilient. And in order to do that, we teach them how to problem solve, how to effectively look through and identify first identify the problem, and then really brainstorming what are some possible solutions and really analyzing the pros and cons with each solution, and then coming up with a strategy to be able to resolve that. And then revisiting that. Did it work? Did it not work? What can we do differently? In addition to the social emotional learning lessons that we do, we have also started to embed some college and career lessons within our elementary as well as our secondary schools. And really the intent behind that is we want to expose students to college and career information early, so that way they know what their options are. So by the time they get into high school, they have a better opportunity to select the classes that really align with what they want to do in the future. So we start in 4th and 5th grade, really sharing with students kind of a wide array of different postgraduate opportunities for themselves, as well as allowing them to start exploring their interests. What are some potential things that they're interested in, and what are careers that are aligned to that? So really looking at exposing them to that information at an early age. And then this year as well too, we actually have added some lessons in our middle schools to give our middle school students an opportunity to be able to start exploring, continue to explore some of their interests and learn about a wide array of different lessons. Bullying is, I think, something that is kind of a statewide type of an issue. So it's always important for us to share with our students what are some preventative practices that they can do to prevent bullying from happening and being able to recognize it, and teaching students how to be an upstander. And so we've started to embed some of those lessons in our elementary schools, as well as our middle schools as well too. So again, we can help ensure our students have the skill sets necessary to combat bullying, and also to stand up for others as well too that are being bullied, because that is really important for us. because the students are being bullied, they're not going to be able to learn effectively if it's impacting their self-esteem. Academics, we also want to make sure we're supporting the structures that are in place to ensure our students are successful academically. So starting in middle school, we start instilling study skill strategies in students, teaching them how to become organized, how to study effectively for tests, just a wide array of different strategies to ensure that the information they're learning in class, that they're able to apply that and again, be successful. Suicide, we know, is a leading cause of death, second leading cause of death for students between the ages of 10 to 24. So as a result, we've really wanted to focus on educating our students about suicide and again, what they can do if they are feeling suicidal or their friend is feeling suicidal. So in 7th and 10th grade, we push into the classroom, or counselors push into the classroom and kind of go over those strategies with students and tell them kind of signs and things that they can look out for, and again, how to get support and what types of resources are available to them. And stress, I think we live in an age where our kids are faced with so many different things coming at them. So we integrate stress management in 9th grade for our students. And it's also part of the emotion management lessons that are covered in our elementary as well as our middle school second step lessons as well. So we just supplement it. So ensure our high school students are getting it as well. So again, these are just to name some of the few topics that we cover. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next slide here. So we also focus in on school-wide activities. So not always necessarily pushing into the classroom, but we also do school-wide activities. A lot of times we partner up with the PTSA groups to put on anti-bullying week. We just finished Great Kindness Week. So we're doing a lot of activities to promote that, a positive school culture. And then going back to what I had mentioned earlier, really exposing our students at an early age about their different options as it relates to career as well as college. And so putting on career days where we have industry people come through and kind of share with our students what it is that they do so our students can learn more about that. And then we always know that there will be students who need additional support. Even if we are providing all our students with basic competencies around SEL, social emotional learning, we always know that there will be students that need more because of various different issues. And so our counselors are available to be able to provide individual counseling for students on a wide array of different issues, whether it's, grief, or whether it's parents divorcing and they're being impacted as a result of it, or it could very well be that they have really low self-esteem. Our counselors are also available to do conflict mediation. So when conflicts arise within peers, they're able to kind of address that early on so it doesn't escalate and turn into a situation where it becomes a fight. I had also mentioned before that there will be students that need more. So in addition to individual counseling, our school counselors are very strategic in grouping students and providing group counseling and workshops for them targeted around building social skills, students that struggle with managing their behaviors, really looking at behavior management. And we utilize a lot of evidence-based interventions because, again, it's been proven to be effective. Get the best outcomes. So we utilize the zones of regulation, student success skills to help students with academic skills, a Y-TRI, which is a resiliency curriculum, coping CAT, which is tied around anxiety and really ensuring that our students have the competencies necessary to overcome anything that may be causing anxiety. And then we all know that times happen in which crisis can happen, whether it's a death on, whether it's a student passed away or a staff member passed away. So we also have mental health support through our school psychologists, school counselors, and intervention specialists available to respond to crisis when the need arises. So behavior is also an important part. If students aren't truly being able to focus in and behaving well in classroom, it's going to be hard for them to learn. So we want to ensure we are helping ensure our staff have the skill sets necessary to create structures that will support behavior. And so we utilize what we call a positive behavioral interventions and supports system. And so the framework really around that is, and the purpose is to make schools more effective and equitable learning environment. And we do that by ensuring it's safe and it's predictable, it's consistent, it's something that students can really rely upon. And overall, it's positive, because we found from research that, you know, the punitive part doesn't really work in terms of producing positive outcomes. And so in order to make students change their behavior, it really has to be centered around promoting a positive school climate. So the framework behind positive behavioral interventions and support is really ensuring that we are having practices in place to support student behavior. So making sure we're teaching specific expectations, making sure we have systems in place in which all staff is doing the same thing, or they understand kind of what to do at the various different stages of different student behaviors. And then really looking at data to strategically identify, okay, where are our problem behaviors happening and what is it that we can do to resolve it? And then revisiting that. Is it truly working? And if not, what can we do to improve our system? So really looking at that school-wide level as well as individualized level to see what students may need more support. So I always like this saying, you know, if a child doesn't know how to read, we teach them, right? If a child doesn't know how to swim, we teach. If they don't know how to multiply, guess what? We teach them. If they don't know how to drive, again, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to behave, a lot of times people think, oh gosh, we got to punish them. We got to do something to discipline them. But again, researchers told us time and time again, if a child doesn't know how to behave, what do we need to do? We need to do the same thing. We need to teach them. So really teaching what our expected behaviors are directly to students in classrooms, as well as settings on the school campus. So these are just some examples of ways in which we make it quite clear for our students what our expectations are. This is individualized for each school. So each school thinks about their school culture, their school climate, and adapts and creates expectation that it's fitting for their student population. So the expectations range anywhere between 3 to 5 school-wide expectations. This example from one of our schools at Concordia is be respectful, be responsible, be kind. Again, very clear on what it is, not too long, so that way students are able to remember it. Because if what they say is if it's anywhere, if it's 6 or more behavioral expectations, the students won't remember, and the staff most likely won't remember it as well too, so you limit it. And then really making sure each area on the school campus, it's clearly defined what those expectations look like. So for this one, it's specific to the lunch area. So we are being very explicit for the students to say, okay, in the lunch area, we expect you to keep your hands to yourself, your feet to yourself, so on and so forth, and really break it down for them as well too. And this is usually posted throughout the campus as a reminder for students as well. And if it is something that they are identified to be doing, not following the expectations, the staff is able to redirect them and remind them what is truly expected. So I had mentioned to you earlier that it's really important for us to teach. We can't just assume that students know what is expected of them. Everyone at their home has different expectations. So it's really important for us to be quite clear and culturally competent when it comes to that, making sure it's truly fitting. So we take the time, usually in the beginning of the year, from our elementary and also our secondary schools, to really set out those expectations. At our elementary schools, some schools actually take the students to the actual different locations, model it for them, have them actually model it as well too, the various different expectations, so that way they've had the opportunity to practice. And then about mid-year or so, the school looks at the data to see, okay, where are problem behaviors happening? And then they reteach those behaviors that are happening the most at that specific location. So we utilize this, it's called a matrix, to really clearly define all the different areas and what, you know, the expectations are in all the areas. So you'll see at the top, it has the different areas of the school campus. To the left, it has the social skills, what it is we want to instill. And then the middle part really just breaks it down. So respectful in the classroom really is about using kind words, appropriate actions, follow directions. It's really breaking it down for them. So it's clear. And we always say, you know, when you're stating the expectation, can you see it and can you hear it? And if when you read it, you can't see it or hear it, it's not going to be clear for students. So making sure that the way you define your expectation, truly students can see it and also they can hear it when it's being done. As I had mentioned to you again earlier, that it's really important for us to stay positive. Because really that's what we found, the research has shown, to help improve student behavior. So our sites are creating a continuum of procedures for encouraging expected behavior and acknowledgement system. So some of you will have some of your students coming home with behavioral expectation tickets that has the actual expectations listed on there. And they get to turn that in for some sort of a reward, or they get to either spin the wheel and have their tickets actually been drawn. So some schools actually have stores in which students can come through and cash it in. Again, some schools do drawing. It all varies depending upon the level that you're at. These are just some examples of how we acknowledge students for following the expected behavior. And then we also want to make sure that we create a positive school climate, but we know the inevitable, that there at some point will have to be this inappropriate behaviors that happen with some students. So we have to be prepared with that and be consistent across the board. So our school sites are creating a continuum of procedures for discouraging inappropriate behavior, clearly indicating what is something that the teacher manages and what is something that the principal then manages. And so really looking at what's a classroom managed behavior and what's a office related behavior, a minor and a major. So that way students are not being sent to the office for every little thing. It's really important that they stay in the classroom to try to acquire the skill sets necessary to help them be successful. So we want to really try to help ensure that the teacher has set structures in place to try to keep students in the classroom. And then of course, if it escalates or if it's a really major behavior, then the teacher knows what to do and it's clearly defined what the next steps are. So no matter who comes to the school, it's pretty consistent and fair across the board. And then we always use data. Data is truly our guiding force. So this is just an example of how we utilize data to identify issues so that way we can target interventions around that. So we have a procedure for ongoing progress monitoring and evaluation. So really identifying, okay, what months are our problem behaviors happening the most? What time? Where is it happening? For this example, you could see that most problem behaviors are happening in the classroom. And then if you look, you could see who the top students are. And then again, identifying interventions to address that, and continuously looking at it and sharing it out with staff is important. Non-classroom setting is really key. A lot of problem behaviors tend to happen on the playground or the lunch area, just really, again, non-classroom settings. And so we want to make sure that those expectations are explicit and across the board. We are also working on ensuring that our supervisors, our proctors are all trained on how to effectively do active supervision. So how to scan, how to move, how to interact with students. So that way, of course, they're not engaging in misbehavior. So again, making sure that training is happening. And then pre-corrections. So reminding students what the expectations are and reminding them, and of course, continually also reinforcing them. So giving them the tickets for following the expectation, even in non-classroom settings. Within the classroom, we want to make sure the structures are in place. So part of Great First Instruction is really teaching teachers about how to set up the classroom in a way that's more conducive to student learning. How to ensure that there's predictability routines is one of the things we teach. So creating a set of expectations for the classroom and what that looks like, as well as the way it's reinforced and taught to students is going to be really important as well too. So teachers within their classroom should be utilizing acknowledgement, a way to be able to acknowledge students on an ongoing basis. And I talked earlier about the continuum of strategies for responding to inappropriate behavior. So that way, again, the first step is not to immediately send the students to the office, but to try to resolve it within the classroom. By an example could be giving a student a reflection sheet to rethink about their behavior and what they would do differently would be an example. And then the last is really looking at the individualized student support. So again, we talked about the tier 3, that there will be students that do need that individualized intensive more support. So we look for those students, we look to see, okay, what's the function of their behavior, and then create things and strategies to help address that function so that way it doesn't continue. Really looking at team-based decision making. So our staff is small group of staff is getting together regularly, looking to see, okay, what students need support and plugging them into various different interventions. And then, of course, teaching those social skills to students who need that extra set of instruction. And then there will be students that need accommodations because of their disability. So really looking at that individually and seeing what types of accommodations may be necessary based on the specific student's disability. And I just wanted to share with you as a closing slide, just some of the impact and positive results that we're already seeing. We've been at this for the last few years. It's been an ongoing process, and we continue to improve and build the supports that we have in place. But you could see, and I'll speak to the suspension rate, and we'll have Peggy speak to the academics, see how we're doing there. But I would say for the suspension rate, we have definitely seen a decline in a suspension rate. And currently, right now, we're only at 2.3 students who are suspended. And so it's gone down drastically. From last year, it was at 0.3. It's gone down 0.3, but the previous years it's gone down even more. So we continue to see a steady decline in our suspension rate, just again because students know what's expected of them and they're being acknowledged for it. So we're really excited about that.
Yeah. Okay, talking about English language arts and mathematics. So this is our overall district dashboard, and in English language arts we are 44.9. So almost 45 points above standard. Our district does very well in this area, and we've maintained this level from previous years or the last year. And then in math, we're 21 points above standard, but you can see that we increased in this area 3.7 points. So we are kind of closing the gap in mathematics. We've had a big emphasis on that. A lot of schools have made that their goal this year to close the gap in mathematics. So in both areas, we're doing very well. We're in the green, and we continue to always increase. So thank you. All right, thank you, everybody. Ryan, are we moving to questions?
Yes, and we had some great ones come in, so we'll start with those. The first one is, any recommendations for students who hold it together at school, but the problem behavior comes out at home?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say if you're not seeing the issues happening at school, however, you're seeing it happen at home, that would be a great opportunity to be able to consult with the school counselor at your school site. So being able to share with them specifically what it is that you're seeing, and then they probably will be able to provide you with strategies and things that you can do at home to be able to help support your child. And if they feel additional things are needed or you need additional support, they're aware of all the different types of parenting classes that are happening within the community that they can always refer you to, or nonprofit agencies that are able to provide counseling. Or, like I said before, they are also able to provide the support themselves, depending upon whatever the issue is. So I would say if you're having an issue happening at home but not at school, I would definitely encourage you to reach out to the school counselor to be able to consult to determine next steps.
Okay, the next one is, regarding SocialEmotional, my 4th grader brought home a worksheet. The content was good, but the examples were adult situations, not specific to her age and things she's going through. I'm concerned with the age appropriateness of the content examples and its effectivity because it is unrelatable. So what should a parent do in those circumstances?
Yeah, so that's actually, again, another great question. So what I would say with that, the curriculum that we utilize, all of them are developmentally appropriate, meaning that they've been research done tied around, the various different groups, and truly the curriculum is something that is age specific. So it's geared towards kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, so on and so forth. And like I said, they build off of each other. If you have a worksheet that went home that you feel may not necessarily be appropriate, again, that's another opportunity as well, just to kind of share with the counselor, because it may be something maybe outside of the curriculum itself. that they may be able to give you something more age specific that might be more appropriate for your specific child. If it was part of the curriculum and you're not feeling that it's truly at their age level, as I had mentioned to you earlier, there are other lower grade levels that might be more fitting that they could always pull from as well too. So again, that's a great opportunity if you're not feeling like it's at your level or your child's level, I should say, and more appropriate for older kids or adults, as you indicated. Definitely reach out to them and see maybe if they have something else that they could provide that would be more appropriate for your student. Step is actually an evidence-based purchase curriculum. So if you visit our website, you'll like to learn more under our school counseling webpage from our district website, you can be able to access the link directly to the second step to learn more about it. But it is evidence-based, lots of research to support it. And I would say that we're probably one of the first elementary schools to adopt that curriculum in Orange County, but it's definitely utilized in a wide array of different districts across the nation. But it is something that is already created and not district made.
All right. How do you keep the program objective by those who are implementing? In other words, what is the check and balance of the program tiers in the individual schools?
Is that a question for me? Either way. What was that? I'm sorry. Could you?
It would be about
Like, how do we hold our teachers and our counselors accountable in our schools for how they're teaching and what they're teaching?
Oh, I see. Got it. Okay, that's helpful. I wasn't sure if you were directing it to the academic realm or but I'll speak to the social emotional realm. So we have a district-wide core curriculum. So a set of lessons that all of our counselors have to implement and push into the classroom and do. And those lessons were actually identified through a needs assessment and really identifying what, from students themselves, as well as parents, as well as staff members, what competencies do you feel is important for students? It was also developed around CASEL's SEL competencies to ensure to ensure that we're really creating lessons geared around those needs. And then once we do that, typically what happens and how we find out kind of the various different things that our counselors are doing is every month they submit a counseling services log that indicate all the different lessons that they've done for that month. And then we expect them to really be able to assess their data. So they're really creating or looking at and delivering pre-post to assess, okay, what have students learned? How are their attitudes, knowledge, and skills different as a result of these lessons? And then the other thing we look at we look at data as well too. So after we've delivered an intervention for, let's say, students that are in a specific group, we're looking to see, do we see changes in their academics? Do we see changes in their behavior? Do we see changes in their attendance? So all the different areas depending upon what the student concern may be. So that kind of speaks to it on the social emotional behavioral realm.
Okay, in terms of academics, it goes back to our professional learning communities where we get very, very clear around which standards we're focusing on. And teachers collaborate around the lessons that are, that are a part of that, that focus on those standards. And they talk about how they're going to deliver that instruction so that they're all in line. But we also allow a lot of autonomy for teachers. Teachers are able to use their own expertise. I mean, teaching is not only a science, it's an art form. So some teachers may deliver it in a different way. Then the teacher groups come back together and they talk about how successful they were in terms of student learning. So they use data and evidence of little quick assessments to determine their effectiveness. And then the teams talk about if one teacher, if her students learned more, what did you do? How did you deliver that lesson? What were your great first instruction strategies that were so successful? And so in a way it is subjective, but then we come back together and we talk about what was effective.
Yeah. So if a parent has concerns either with emotional or academic needs, what should they do?
So if a parent has concerns, there's a couple of different options that they can do. One is they can actually go, for convenience purposes, they can actually go online. Each school district, or each school I should say, should have a counselor's corner on their school's webpage. And on that webpage, we actually have a counseling referral for each of our school sites. And so all you would need to do is fill out the counseling referral. It automatically goes directly to the school counselors at that school, and then they can then follow up with you based upon your referral. Another option could just be, you could just drop in or call school counselor to share with them kind of what your concerns may be. And then once you do that, again, the counselor can share with you what their recommendations may be. But I would definitely say convenient way is online, filling out the referral, expressing what your concerns are, the specifics of it. And then the other option would be either phone call or stop by the counselor's office and let them know specifically what your concern may be.
Thank you.
And for academics, your first point of contact is always your child's teacher. So if you have any concern, reach out to your child's teacher. If you are not available during the day to stop by or make a phone call, send an email. Every school website has all teachers' emails posted. The teacher should respond to you within 48 hours. They're available for meetings, not outside of conference time. Of course, we have parent-teacher conference times that are scheduled, but teachers can meet with you at any time. We have something called a family school partnership plan that if there is ongoing concerns regarding your child's academics or behavior, teachers and parents get together and brainstorm some ideas and strategies to provide intervention or extra help in those areas. And then they develop a plan, could be an intervention plan for 6 to 8 weeks, and both the home and the school implement their part of the plan, and then they come back together to see the effectiveness. And there's a whole process. If it's not effective, then they can take a look at different strategies and keep going. So it's definitely everybody's number one concern that students are successful. So if you have any concerns, please let the teacher know.
Okay, and I have just one final question, and that is MTSS a substitute for outside counseling and support that might be necessary for families?
Okay, that's a great question. So I would say that school counselors are there to provide support for things that may be getting in the way from a student being successful academically, behaviorally, and just in all. However, if a student does have a mental health diagnosis, such as depression or really extreme anxiety, that is when typically we then make the referral out, just because a real mental illness really does need a higher level of support. But what our school counselors can do is provide the psychoeducation, so to help educate not only the student, but also the family about what the concerns are, what the signs are. And then, of course, like I said, make the recommendation. For students who it truly is impacting their academics, on the extreme realm, that's when we start looking at potential assessment and really looking to see, could the student qualify for services within the school day. And typically that's provided by our intervention specialists, which are required to have not only a credential to work within our schools, but also a license such as a social work license or a marriage and family license, therapy license, again, that's more for students who are very extreme and it's impacting their academics. But I would definitely say if they have a true mental illness, our counselors can provide that foundational support. But typically for a student like that, they will need supplemental and more intensified support through someone who is a licensed clinician.
Thank you. I always ask that question because I know it comes up frequently when the superintendent is out speaking at school sites with families. And I know that we mention just to families in general that sometimes the partnership with our families is critical, especially with the challenges that that Rebecca just mentioned, that it is sometimes necessary to access outside services using your insurance if possible in order to get children the support they need. I know our counselors are incredible. It's a $4 million investment, like I said, every year, but they have way more kids than a private counselor would have on their own services. So our counselors are incredible, but you know, if we could afford to pay for more of them and to have more of them in our schools and lower that student ratio, that would be incredible. It is a lot of work for them, and they do incredible work on that for our students. So as we wrap up, I just want to say thank you to Rebecca Pianta, our coordinator for counseling and student support, and to Peggy Berst, our executive director for elementary education. I know that this is great information, which is why we wanted to share it via webinar. We did record this, so we will be sending it out to families so they can access this, and we will put it online. One other thing I do want to just plug before we end is that our third in our series of family talks with Hoag Hospital is coming up on February 26th from 6 to 8 at Capo Valley High School. And we will be talking about self-harm and suicide with a group of incredible doctors and counselors and psychologists, psychiatrists from Hoag Hospital who have talked to us so far this year about social media, about substance abuse and vaping. They will be with us at the end of the month, February 26th from 6 to 8 at Capo Valley High School, again for self-harm and suicide. You could RSVP to attend that event on our website. Go to the front page of our homepage, and you'll find it under our Hoag and CUSD speaker series. We'll also be sending out a school messenger to families tonight, and that RSVP link will be in there. So we do invite you to join us. That is a live discussion, town hall style. We will have a talk from the Hoag Hospital staff, and then time for Q&A as well. So again, thank you to Rebecca and Peggy for this great information, and have a great week. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.